everybody, I'm Amy Ray. Normally I am at the Cody Library as the Teen Services Librarian. Right now we are in my own kitchen and we're going to be making some pancakes today. I really like this recipe. We make it a lot at teen time, and we do it partially because one, it's really easy, but two, it's also a really good way to get used to variations on cooking. And oh dear, my cat just sneezed. If you hear my cat sneeze, it's okay. He just sneezes a lot. And two, it's really good for learning to do variations and getting a sense of how to cook, not just from a recipe. So we're going to start by turning on our oven. We're going to put it around like the midpoint. If you put on really high, sometimes it messes up your pans. Don't mess up your pans. Your parents will be very angry with you. So we're going to let that heat up. It's going to take a little while. We're going to come over here where I'm going to show you our ingredients. We are going to use flour, white sugar, salt, baking powder, butter, an egg, and milk. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them as we go. Now, you're going to notice, I'm not used to having the camera on me, so hopefully it'll mostly be on my hands, but we'll see. You're going to notice I've already started doing the flour. This is because flour is extremely tedious to measure. If you can, get yourself a scale and measure flour by weight. It will be more accurate and it'll be way faster. However, I'm assuming not everybody has one of those, so I'm going to show you real quick how we want to measure flour, because this is actually really important. It's very tempting to make it fast and just scoop it and dump it in. But if you do that, you're actually going to end up with way too much flour, and if you have too much flour, it's going to be dry. It's not going to taste very good. So you're going to want to use a spoon to sort of scoop the flour into your measuring cup. Thank you. My cameraman's name is Leland, and he's doing a very good job. Also, if you guys have any comments, questions, anything else like that, just let me know. Feel free to put something in the box and Lee will read them for us and let me know what's up. Anyway, so you want to start by scooping it. You don't want to get rid of any of all of the air pockets between these tiny little pieces of flour. And then you want to use your knife and you want to level it. So as you can see, that is level. There's no cap for on anything in this household. It is level. It is not heaped. And then we dump it in. So I already did 1 cup worth of flour. This is a ½ cup measuring cup. And we are going to be done with the flour, thank goodness, because it's extremely boring to measure. Now that we have our flour, we're going to want baking powder. Important thing with baking powder, you also level this. So we're going to use a teaspoon, 3.5 teaspoons, sorry. So here's our teaspoon. We scoop it up. We use the side to level. We do that 3 times. And if you ever see in a recipe that it just says 3.5 teaspoons and it doesn't say leveled or not, when in doubt, I would probably lean towards trying to get it leveled. Usually if they want you to just heap it up like this, it'll say a heaping teaspoon or tablespoon. So 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder. You don't want more. It's not as bad as baking soda, but trust me, if there's too much, you will taste it and you will regret your choices. Now we want our salt. For our salt, we are going to use 1 teaspoon. We don't have to worry quite as much about heaping versus not heaping, which is nice. Oh, do we have some questions? Oh, hey, people saying hello. I see Jennifer Velasquez has joined. Very exciting. Who else is in here? We've got Pole 1953, Heidi S., Spurs fan 12, Sappington Michelle. Welcome, everybody. We are just getting started on our pancakes. We have our pan heating up. We have my attempts at measuring salt, 1 teaspoon, going in here. Now, if you don't have salt, it's not a game breaker. It won't be quite as good if you don't have the salt. But, I mean, one of the nice things is this is a forgiving recipe.
Jen Velasquez says hi.
Well, hello. It's nice to hear from you. So we're going to do our, let's see, sugar. Now, we need I'm just dusting. We need a tablespoon of sugar for this. You guys may know that a tablespoon is the same as 3 teaspoons, so we're just going to reuse the teaspoon. 3 teaspoons. 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 3 teas measuring spoon, that's the word. We're going to use that just because I'm lazy and it's my house. I'm the one who's going to eat the pancakes. A lot of this would be different if we were at teen time. For one thing, we would be wearing gloves, if y'all remember the endless glove wearing. Oh, I should mention, I did wash my hands before we started. Always wash your hands first, very important. Anyway, we're going to measure our sugar. Now, pancakes do not, in fact, have to have sugar in them. And as you can see, we're getting it pretty level. This is not as hard as with something as powdery as baking powder or flour. With pancakes, they don't have to have sugar. It will help them brown a little bit. The sugar is, it sort of caramelizes as part of the recipe and it browns and gives it a nice look. However, if you want like a savory pancake, you can totally do that. If you just want a pancake with no sugar in it because you're going to just pile whipped cream and maple sugar all over it, then you know what? Live your bliss. Do whatever works best for you. So now we are going to whisk this together. Not very exciting. We now have, flour with other stuff in it. But we gotta whisk it before we do anything else because we want to make sure that all of the ingredients are evenly distributed. Otherwise you're gonna have pockets of baking powder and it's gonna taste bad. So, whisked. We're gonna set that aside for a second. Now, we're gonna measure our milk. You may feel lazy and you may say, I have dry measuring cups like this one. Can I measure milk in them and other liquids? The answer is you shouldn't, and I don't. Sometimes I'm lazy. It doesn't turn out as good. So we're going to use our milk. We're going to use our liquid measuring cup. And Leland, my cameraman, can you scoot down with me? Because we need to make sure we're measuring it on the level. If you look at it from above, you're going to get the incorrect amount because your perception is just skewed that way. So we're going to measure to 1 1/4 cups milk, and we're going to make sure we're on the level. I am absolutely sort of squashed down right now. It's just how we go. So that's how we measure milk. Make sure you do that or you'll get too much. Your pancakes will be runny. We're going to set this aside for a second and jump over to our egg. I'm not super good at cracking eggs. And now that I'm on screen, I'm sure I'll be really bad at it. That part's easy. We're going to borrow our whisk because we don't need to worry about our dry ingredients. We've done all of them first. So now we can just switch this over to a wet ingredient whisk and go to town. All right, so Chris Clean, Ovox, Dr. Hoovian. Oh, Dr. Hoovian, are you our pal from the Discord? I mean, you don't actually have to respond. I'm curious because I've seen your name on our Discord and it's been really nice to have y'all around. So, while we look excitedly at our list of people, as you can see, our eggs, well, hopefully you can see, it's kind of yellow on green wasn't my best choice. But as you can see, the eggs have gone from being a yolk and the white to being this pale yellow, mixed pretty well emulsion of both. We want them to be whisked. We want them to have these little air bubbles in them. And the reason we want that is because it's going to make our pancakes fluffier in the end. Similarly, once we dump in our milk, we are going to want to whisk it again. Because again, we're turning up all of the stuff inside of them. I think it has to do with the proteins in milk and eggs. I'm not entirely sure. My sister is the chemist in our family, and I am not. But this is a step that's going to make a really big difference between having sort of flat, floppy pancakes and, really, really fluffy ones. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at our butter. As you can see, still in chunks. We have 3 tablespoons here. Not going to mix very well as it is. So I'm going to take this over to our microwave. Now, please ignore, one, the fact that it's always very messy around our microwave. We just have a lot of food in our house. 2, when you put something in the microwave, cover it. Your parents will be much happier with you. However, I live in my own house and I can do what I want. So I don't cover it and I just clean the microwave afterwards. Not my best choice, but again, that's just how we roll. Now the very exciting part, we watch the microwave. While we do that, I can tell you, if you are lactose intolerant, if you're vegan, consider using alternatives to butter, egg, and milk, obviously. Especially butter, you can replace it with things like mashed banana, applesauce, a lot of different things that might end up being even healthier anyway. Eggs, I generally recommend you either use chia seed mixed with water or ground flax mixed with water. So now we're going to dump our butter into our egg and milk concoction, and it's going to just sort of spread out really, really fast. It's going to be kind of cool looking. Here we go. Extremely exciting. And honestly, I've made pancakes with water. It's turned out okay. I've made pancakes with like seltzer water and soda and stuff. It turns out okay. This is a pretty forgiving recipe. We're going to dump all of our wet ingredients over here now. I should have mentioned earlier, if you want to add anything that's like a spice, or you could add cocoa powder to this dry ingredients, you would want to add that back when you're whisking everything else together. When you add this stuff, it's going to make it a little bit harder to add in things like cinnamon and stuff like that. That's probably best to do while you're doing the other stuff. Similarly, if you say to yourself, you know, I want my pancakes to have vanilla extract or anything like that, I would really recommend putting that in with your milk, your eggs, your butter. I would say like a teaspoon of vanilla extract would be perfect amount to do something with these. But they also sell a bunch of other kinds of extracts, like you could get cinnamon extract, maple extract. Now here's the hard part. When you mix flour with liquids, eventually flour has gluten in it if it's wheat flour, which is what we're using. We're using all-purpose flour. And it has these little gluten molecules that eventually start to sort of like link up with each other as you mix it. So that's really good if you're kneading bread. It's not so good for things like quick breads, like banana breads, and it's not great for pancakes either. So I do this weird thing where I check to see if there's any dry flour, and I don't really see very much. That's why we use the clear bowl. This is kind of wacky cooking here at Casa del AR. But we want it to just have this texture where it's maybe a little bit lumpy, but as you can see, it's honestly very fluffy. You can kind of see these different air bubbles, these pockets of air, and as long as there's no dry flour in there, you're basically good to go. So, finally, I might even stop talking for a second or two, because I know I'm very chatty. We're going to take some of this, put it on here with our frying pan. I usually use a 1/4 cup measuring cup, because that's going to be, it's going to ensure that you get an equal amount of pancake every single time. Now, as you can see, it's very fluffy. And I just sort of wallop it down. And honestly, usually I make several at a time. Let's see if we can fit a second one on here. But yeah, as you can see, it gets very fluffy. They may turn into one gigantic pancake, but that's the beauty of experimenting. And if you're the kind of person who likes stuff in your pancakes, this is the time when personally I would add things. Sometimes when you add them to the batter, then they will get sort of sunk to the bottom. And it really depends on your preference. But for instance, if you like fruit, like blueberries are the classic, but personally I like raspberries much better. Here's some miniature chocolate chips that I found. I don't know why we even have them, but here they are. I don't actually like chocolate chip pancakes, so I'm hoping that the cameraman will eat some. Oh, apparently this one's just going to get fed to the cat. We won't actually feed it to the cat. So here's the really hard part about pancakes. You kind of have to be patient. You kind of have to hang out and wait. So we're going to take a moment. We're going to say hi to Backseat Broski and Hasting Heidi and Green Guy 9070. And, you know, everyone that I didn't actually manage to say hello to at first, because I was just like, you know, a tornado of nervous energy trying to figure out how to do this. I'm going to be honest, this is the first time I've ever done an Instagram Live. I'm kind of an old person. I don't know if you've noticed. But here's what's hard. We have to be patient. We can't just flip it just to see how it goes. We really want to wait until the bottom is kind of done. If you don't wait, they turn out kind of bad. You have to flip them back and forth over and over and over again. It's not the world's most interesting thing, but like pancakes that taste bad, totally worse. So when we are wondering if they might be ready, we try very patiently to wait, but then we sort of lift the flap on the edge. As you can see, I don't know, can you guys see? It's still very yellowy under there, so we're gonna try and be patient. I don't know, how do you guys like your pancakes? Oh, and while we're here, we'll say hi to IB Cindy. I like that. But yeah, if you guys want to throw anything in the chat, if you guys have questions, I will say that if you want to make them different colors, usually we throw food coloring into them at teen time. I'm just a little when I'm at home. When we do it at teen time, we usually throw the food coloring in when we are mixing the wet and dry materials together, rather than throwing it in with the wet materials, mostly because it looks really weird if it's just like milk and egg and butter and food dye.
IBC&D says heart face emoji.
Oh, heart face emoji back to you! It's nice to see y'all. Honestly, this is going better than I expected. So, okay, let's check on our pancakes again. As you can, actually, before we look way at the edge of them, cameraman Leland, if you look over here, you can see, oh, the light is not great. There we go. You can kind of see these little dots, and that is air bubbles. It is essentially, honestly, where butter has melted and left holes, which is sort of similar to how various things work when you're making bread and other stuff. You can also kind of see that some of these, especially the smaller two, are starting to look a little dry on the edges, which usually means that you're a bit closer to being able to actually flip them. So I'm hoping, prayer circle everyone, yes, I think we can flip this safely, even if it's not the most beautiful pancake. It's a pancake. The nice thing about pancakes, you know, I've said it over and over, this is a recipe you can definitely change up if you are gluten-free. You don't have to use all-purpose flour. There are all kinds of good gluten-free ones. You can add flavors. You can do multiple colors and do tie-dye recipes. Flip. And even if they end up sort of smushed up at the side, eventually it cooks. And it's just delicious. Yeah, do you guys have any questions for me? Like, if you don't, it's totally cool. I understand that pancakes are pretty simple. The main reason I'm showing you how to make them is, one, you might not know how, but two, aside from everything we talked about before, I think that this is a really good way to start to get a sense of how to cook based on your senses. Because when you're looking at these pancakes, cameraman Leland, look at the pancakes with me. When we're figuring out whether they're cooked or not, we aren't going by any kind of arbitrary, put it in the oven for 5 minutes kind of numbers. We're looking at what they look like, how they smell, if the chocolate is melted. And those kinds of things are skills that are really important to learn if you want to be a good cook, which I can't promise that I am, but I'm pretty okay. And they're things that you need to learn just so that you have a good sense. If only because then when you go to college, you'll be like the popular person who can cook things for people. I can tell you that that's not a bad life. So, I don't know. What time are we at? Does it tell us? I am not sure. I think we're going to call this good because we basically learned to make a pancake, and I have a lot more pancakes to make. So I hope you guys have a great day, great night, great rest of the week. Before you go, remember to like this, follow us on Instagram. If you go to @210teenservices, you're going to find out all of our other programs for the week. We have stuff on Discord, and we have other stuff on Instagram Live on Thursdays and Saturdays. So, thank you so much.